That's good.
My name's Tim Springer. I have a firm that goes by the name of HERO. It stands for Human Environment Research Organization. We are researchers and consultants in workplace writ large. My background's in ergonomics. I've been consulting on and off for about 30 years. Took some time off in the middle to be a department chair at Michigan State University, build a graduate program in facilities management. Now, there are really sort of four phases of Office. Office 1.0, in terms of the modern office, started sometime around 1904. Frank Lloyd Wright built the Larkin building, which was the first purpose-built office in the U.S. It's for the Larkin brothers. They invented mail order. It's in Buffalo, New York. Unfortunately, it's been torn down, but it was the first purpose-built office building. But it was built around a hierarchical organizational structure. So you have the boss in the corner office with this great big phone machine, bullpens, rows and columns, that sort of thing. We still find some need for that and some evidence of that today. Office 2.0 began 1950s, 1960s. Bureau Landschaft, have you heard of that? Office landscape. Came out of the Quickborner Group, a German consulting firm. They realized that the office really didn't work the way people were working. And so they hired a planner on their staff. They were management consultants. They didn't know anything about space. So they hired a planner and they developed office landscape. It took about 8 or 9 years for it to make its way to the US. DuPont and Kodak tried it first. The workers loved it. The managers didn't, because the managers had to give up their corner offices, move out into the open plan, and we're still wrestling with that today. But office landscape grew into panel systems, and panel systems got electrified, and then they never moved, and then we had Dilberville. So that's Office 2.0. You still find some of that. Office 3.0, portability, cell phones. You remember the bricks? You know, the cell phone bricks, they were about this big, and they're about that wide, and they weighed about 4 pounds. But you could make a cell phone call on them. The shrinking footprints, this started sometime 1990-ish. The first hoteling happened here in Chicago. Ernst & Young. They moved from 3 buildings, including a couple that were right here on the river, to 3 floors in the Sears Tower. And one thing they found was their consultants were hardly ever in the office. So they were looking to solve that problem, save some money. And so Mike Brill, who was lead of Bosty, and I were on the project, and actually Mike had a summer house on Lake Erie. And while we were there one time, he goes, you know what they really need is a cabana and some towels. I said, I don't think business is going to buy the cabana. But officing was born in the 1990s. Now, portability hadn't caught up with it, technology hadn't caught up with it, but it was the first alt office, an alternative workplace strategy. So around 2007, we entered the year I call Office 4.0, which is where we are today. The economy started to decline. We started lowering partitions even more, moving away from the cube. Video conferencing or telepresencing became mainstream. More unenclosed offices, more concern about the environment and green, a recognition that work is multiple tasks in multiple settings. To address all of those different kinds of offices and to address the changes that are in the office, businesses are exploring ways to use space differently, thus alternative workplace strategies. Now, a lot of organizations drop the alternative and just talk workplace strategies. But it's a systematic approach for changing how space is configured and used. Now, we are in a furniture showroom, but unfortunately, alternative workplace strategies is not a furniture-based solution. Furniture is part of it, it's an integral part of it. But you can't just change the furniture and expect people's behavior to change. It's an organizational change. So, you have to begin by asking, alternative to what? For some organizations, moving from private offices to open plan is an alternative. And then, why change the workplace? What else is changing? Are you using new technology? Have you changed your organizational structure? Have you merged? Have you changed your leadership? All kinds of stuff happen that workplace needs to respond to. There are really three driving forces: change, change, and change. But really, workplace supports and enables changes in the fundamental domains of an organization, whether it's human resources or IT or all these sorts of things. These are the behaviors: independent and interactive. Pretty straightforward. You could talk to most people, they'd be able to name a lot of these. The interesting thing is that there are some that are both. And there's research behind this. But if you talk about work behaviors and supporting them, you can build a profile of a job or a group of jobs using these kind of descriptors and the iconography, and begin to say, from a functional requirement standpoint, these types of workplaces are more interactive. These type of workplaces are more independent. Or these type of workplaces need pretty rapid movement between the two, because nobody does all of one. There are no jobs, with the possible exception of a monk someplace, that is only done independently and never interacts. And there are no jobs that are only interactive and never involve heads down independent work. All jobs involve both. So, work locations. It's a continuum. Dedicated workspace to virtual distributed work. Somewhere on that continuum, you'll find most organizations. Oftentimes, somewhere right about here. And it's not the same for everybody in the organization. Lawyers, for example, have a high need for some place, it may not be dedicated, but some place where they can be isolated, because they talk about sensitive stuff, they have to be able to confer with people. The principal location, at least for folks in our business, is the redesigned office. There are some other locations, home, and unfortunately a lot of people aren't able to work well from home, but they're still expected to. The library, airport, hotel, cafe, and so forth, rental offices, Regis. Satellite offices are sort of like mini offices that are around a geographic area. All these other things are really sort of other. They're talked about as a third place, but they're other. Distributed work, that's when it's pretty much spread around among people in different locations and connected technologically. Work anytime, anywhere. Work patterns, there's either assigned or unassigned, because people use space at different times of the day. So you can assign space with things like hoteling, which we talked about. It's using space like a hotel. For example, the consultants were in the office only like 2 weeks out of 6 months. So you could use the same office for a bunch of different consultants, just like a hotel. Group address, say you have a team, they're assigned to this space. Nobody has an independent or assigned space, but that group gets to use that area. And then shared offices, this happens to be the White House, but shared officing is tough to do. Well, unassigned are things like touchdown space for mobile workers or road warriors, group space where there's a team room and you can use it as needed, or free address and drop-in space. So to summarize, you have independent interactive work modes, you have all these different work behaviors, you have redesigned office and other, assigned and unassigned, and then the configuration. We can go through some examples, but actually the critical thing to remember is there's no right way, in effect. That a cluster of workstations over here, that may work for a assigned work group, but it may also work as a group address for a team, or it may work for drop-in stations. It depends on what the people are doing and how your organization is structured and what kinds of things exist in terms of information, infrastructure, and all those other kinds of support structures that are in place. The Kimball folks have gone through a much longer session and can explain how some of their furniture will support these kinds of work behaviors. Okay. Thank you.